Hello and welcome to Horror Boys. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris.
And we are the Horror Boys. And this isn't just any old podcast on this old internet. No, my friends. This is a horror movie review podcast where every week we review a horror movie. Typically franchise by franchise. Yeah. So we're going to keep doing that.
Yeah.
And we're
what
going to talk...
franchise are we in the middle of right
We're
now?
in the middle of that Child's Play / Chucky franchise. And we're talking about Seed of Chucky. So, you know, we're going to have opinions. Because people have opinions on this movie.
Why don't they? And you know, I think that's the way it ought to be. People should have opinions.
I mean, yeah, in general, yes, people should have opinions. I guess that's fair. That is a fair statement. And unless they disagree with my opinion, then they shouldn't have them.
Oh, no, I think it's funny when people don't agree with my opinion.
It's fair. Well, then this might be a funny podcast.
Uh-oh.
What? Oh.
One can only hope.
So we're going to start with our, pre-note stuff, where we talk about, the behind-the-scenes stuff.
And the 80 puppeteers. Just kidding.
No, only like 17.
Not 80.
Yeah. It's 17. No, it's 18, sorry, because there's 17 new puppeteers. But first, let's get through our writer and director. For the first time, our director is Don Mancini. He's been around since the first time writing, but this is his first time behind
Taking
the
the
camera.
reins.
I mean, I guess to be fair, he's always been behind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, always been behind the camera. I'll stick with taking the reins.
Yeah, you understand. Our producer and character designer, I guess is what you could also call him, because he always designs the new characters we have, is our boy David Kirshner, returning once again. Our composer is Pino Donaggio, who was also the composer of Carrie, Piranha, and The Howling, just to name a few of his 220 credits as a composer.
Well, he's been around the block a few times.
Our director of photography is Vernon Layton of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. My bad. Our special effects, makeup, and animatronic effects supervisor was Tony Gardner, who also did work on Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, Aliens, Psycho 4, the Thriller music video, and Hocus Pocus, which is where he met Kirshner, which is part of how he got this job.
Nice.
Yeah. Our returning puppeteer is Mario J. Torres. So if you want to know about him, go to our, I think last episode was his first episode, so you'll find all about him. Our 17 new puppeteers, starting first, this is in order of the credits. We have Michael Bayliss of Muppets Christmas Carol, Muppets Treasure Island, Little Shop of Horrors, and Labyrinth. We have David Bonnewell of Event Horizon, 28 Weeks Later, Game of Thrones, and The Witcher. We have Peter A. Chavaco of 127 Hours, Jack and Jill, Passion of the Christ, The Mask, and Son of the Mask. So he's got a very varying career throughout, just a random assortment of movies there.
I don't know what you mean by varying. I think they're all of the same caliber and seriousness.
Yeah. Then we have Stephen Clark, who has nothing else that I was able to find that they worked on. Patrick Comerford of Muppet Treasure Island and Star Wars 7, Rogue One, 8, Solo, and 9. So, like, all of
He's the new Star Wars guy.
Yeah. We got Susan Dacre of TMNT 2, Secret of the Ooze, Labyrinth, Little Shop of Horrors, Neverending Story 3, Muppets Treasure Island, Muppets Christmas Carol, and Muppets Most Wanted.
Oh.
We then have Andrew Garner of Event Horizon, Resident Evil, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, and Game of Thrones. We then have Barnaby Harrison of Muppet Treasure Island, Muppets Most Wanted, Blade 2, Star Wars Episode 8, Solo, and Leprechaun. Then we have Ellen Hedgecock of Blade 2, 28 Days Later, and Hellraiser 2. Then we got Mark Hunter of Lost in Space, Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban, Doom, and The Dark Knight. We have Hiroshi Kon Ikuchi of Alien Resurrection, Alien vs. Predator Requiem, The Thing, Tremors 2, Jurassic Park 3, The Muppets, not just The Muppets in general, but specifically like the 2015 movie The Muppets or whatever, and Captain America Winter Soldier, Santa Claus 1 through 3, and is a Horror Boy alum for their work on New Nightmare. Or, sorry, Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Thank you.
We then have Jamie Lawrence. And then we have...
Oh, okay.
Rachel Leonard of Muppets Most Wanted and Solo. Then we have Justin Pitkelly of Sleepy Hollow, The Mummy, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, and Prometheus. Then we have Lynn Robertson Bruce of Lost in Space, Muppets Most Wanted, Star Wars 7, Rogue One, 8, Solo, 9, and Andor. And then we got Lilo Turavio. I think Turavio. It's not an American name, so I'm sorry if I butchered it. Of 127 Hours, Stir of Echoes, Dogma, and Zombieland. And lastly, we have Sarah Wright of Muppets Treasure Island. And wait, no, I lied. We have one more person, maybe. So the backstory behind this person was in the behind the scenes special. They show this person working on one of the puppets during the behind the scenes, and that's an uncredited, if they did work on the movie and didn't just work on that behind the scenes thing, Horror Boy alum Doug Jones, who's he was in Jack Frost 2. As well as he's also just a guy who plays a lot of characters in Del Toro's movies. He's the guy with the crazy eyes on his hands. He's in Hellboy. Tall, skinny guy.
Oh, yeah.
He may have worked on this movie. He's not credited at all on IMDb or in the actual credits, but he is very visible in this behind the scenes, working on. I think he was specifically in that scene working on Tiffany's puppet. So I don't know if it was just one time he did it because he happened to be there while they were filming the behind the scenes thing, because it was specifically work for, because the way the behind the scenes worked, they had fake interviews with all of the puppets, and then they'd cut to the people who were working I'm controlling Tiffany's arms or whatever. So maybe he only did that. I'm not sure, but hey, just in case, I'll give him a credit because he's a Horror Boy alum, so we'll mention him.
Whoopee.
Yeah. Now it's time to open our movie, baby, and I'm happy that there was for the first time ever, not, as I joke about how I regret doing it every time because there's so many of them, even though I'm very happy to give them credit. I'm very happy we did it this time because, oh boy, we would get demonetized immediately if we went right into the movie because, we open with our credits that have a, white
milky
goo.
White goo.
Yeah, this viscous white goo.
Down on the screen slowly.
Yeah, it covers the screen.
I wonder what that could be in the movie called
don't worry,
Seed of Chucky.
Yeah, because soon we're going to be inside a reproductive tract where the title card is swam around by sperm.
Yep.
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 And
that's the central credit scene.
Yeah, and then our credits continue as they swim to an egg and form an ugly baby. Kind of a la, Look Who's Talking has a very similar intro. But yeah, it's a baby.
Yeah.
That's the credits. And Chris hated these credits so much that, it ruined the first 10 minutes of this movie, no matter what for him.
All I could think about.
He did not give... Chris might have still not liked this movie, but he did not
early 2000s CGI.
Yeah.
Just all the time in your face.
Yeah, I did not have a problem with it, really, and definitely would not have held... Here's the thing. I don't know if Chris would have liked this movie if he gave the first 10 minutes a try. Probably not, but he definitely didn't even give this first 10 minutes a true chance because he hated the credits so much.
Mentally stuck in the credits for way longer than I should have been.
We now have a POV sequence. Normally I'd say shot, but this is a whole sequence that we're going to be in POV this whole time. We start with this. We're as the POV. We're a doll being unopened by Claudia, who finds us very ugly.
Yeah.
Neither of her parents know where the gift came from. Claudia is played by Betty Denville. Claudia's mom is played by Stephanie Chambers. And Claudia's dad is played by Simon James Morgan. Claudia throws the present in her toy box. And now we cut to a little bit later. Still in a POV shot, because we're going to be in that until I tell you we're not. We, as the doll, the unseen doll, exit the toy box and grab a knife from the cake, because it is Claudia's birthday. And we head upstairs. The POV killer doll hears Claudia's... I keep saying it like that because, spoiler, I definitely think it wants you to think you're Chucky right now, but we're not. I think that's part of why they chose... I mean, it could also just be an homage to Psycho and Halloween and all the other horror movies that did it first. But I do think... I also pretty sure some of the laughs that we hear in this scene are Brad Dourif to kind of add to the us not knowing. But spoiler, it's not. But yeah, so they head upstairs. They hear Claudia's dad coming and they stop moving. Claudia's dad reprimands Claudia for leaving her stuff in the hallway after he remarks how ugly the doll is, because just so you know, this doll is ugly. It's kind of a reoccurring theme, is this ugly doll. Claudia claims she didn't leave it in the hall. And then the doll stabs Claudia's dad, causing him to fall over the banister to his death. The doll scurries back upstairs into the bathroom where Claudia's mom is showering. The doll, in a very Psycho-inspired scene, goes up to stab her, but in this, unlike Psycho, he drops the knife, or drops their knife. And the scene Wait, what? Drops in... I jumped up a line as I was doing that, because... Yeah, sorry. Claudia's mom falls out of the tub and cracks the back of her head on the floor, killing her. And also, one of the first, and I believe only time, there's ever nudity in the Child's Play franchise. I mean, spoiler, there's some more fake nudity in this movie, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah, sure will.
But this is the only human nudity ever in the franchise.
There you go.
So I guess if that's the only reason you watch horror movies, 1, get a life. 2, I guess this is the Child's Play movie for you. Or Chucky movie.
Go touch grass and then watch this movie.
Or don't touch grass and just go on the internet. It's a lot easier. If there's, you don't need to... Don't sully the name of horror movies if that's all you care about.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah. Then the doll sees itself in the mirror. It's our first shot of this doll. We still don't know who they are, though. They scream and run away to Claudia's room, who's not in their bed, or her bed. The killer starts to pee themselves, and Claudia repeats, "You're pissing your pants," until the killer is woken up, revealing this is all a dream, except for the pants pissing, because that's another running joke, which I will defend the humor in this movie a lot. I actually enjoy most of it. I really hate the pissing the pants joke, and they bring it back multiple times. It's not funny the first time. It's not funny the fourth time. But it's there. The doll,
sure is,
who at this point is known as, I'm going to refer to them as Poop Face until they have a different name, but you can assume that there is an obscenity maybe in there. But yeah. Poopface is voiced by Billy Boyd of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, alongside Horror Bois alums Elijah Wood of The Faculty, Viggo Mortensen of either Texas Chainsaw 3 or 4. I can't remember which one. 3, right?
It was 3.
Yeah, it's 3. And Chucky himself, Brad Dourif, is also in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Wait. Is New Generations 4?
Yes. So it's 3.
It was 4.
Was it 4? No, Viggo Mortensen. No, because that's got Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
It's 3. It's Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It is 3.
That is the movie Viggo Mortensen is in. But Brad Dourif is also in that. But none of these people matter because we're actually talking about Billy Boyd. I was just trying to give a quick, hey, here's the other people in this movie. Crazy, right? Poopface is woken up by Sykes, the ventriloquist of their shared act. Sykes is played by Keith Lee Castle of Young Dracula. I've never heard of the show, but he plays Dracula on Young Dracula, so I assume it's like Young Sheldon. Probably similar in tones.
I was about to make the same joke. It's like, oh, I'm sure it's just like Young Sheldon.
That's great. I love that our minds were both wanting to rip on that show. Psych keeps Poopface in a cage, very, Pinocchio-esque. We see a bit of their performance at the International Ventriloquist Competition in, I believe, somewhere in
Glastonbury?
England. Okay, yeah. Somewhere in England.
Glastonbury, England,
The routine is at Poopface's expense for the most part. I believe this is the first time we hear about how Poopface is not anatomically correct. They do not have any genitalia, if you will.
Yeah, and that's problematic for a doll.
Fair.
It's not, but in this movie it is.
It is. And, yeah. We then get some narration from Poopface about being a freak orphan who's Japanese. Because they have this marking on them that says Made in Japan, and every time they bring it up, there's generic Japanese music that plays. That, I'll be honest, by the third time it happens, it comes around to being funny to me. The first time, it's like, okay, what are you doing? But when we get to the last time it happens, I found it funny. Because, I don't know. I just did. I'm not going to defend myself. I'm just going to say I found it funny and move on.
Fair.
But yeah. It does not look like Chris found it funny, and...
I didn't get there at any point in time.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But they don't know why they have such terrible nightmares. And they also talk about how they wouldn't hurt a fly, which is also a reference to Psycho. That's a line from Psycho. Yeah. This movie has a lot of references to Psycho. We had... but yeah, sorry. Then the narration ends with them wondering what their parents are like. So we head to a snowy cemetery where a man dressed as Santa is broken up on the phone by his girlfriend. Santa is played by Jason Fleming of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. A knife cuts itself out of the sack. He turns around to see all the toys that fell out of his bag. He looks over and sees Chucky sitting in front of a gravestone. Santa goes over to look at Chucky, and we see as Tiffany is sneaking up on him, and it's really cool shot from Chucky's eye. It's a cool reflection shot. But yeah, so Tiffany sneaks up and she restrains Santa with a slinky. Chucky slices the fake belly and cuts off the beard / slits his throat at the same time, saying, "You're not real." Tiffany says, "You know what this kind of disappointment can do to somebody?" Chucky is still voiced by Brad Dourif, and Tiffany is still voiced by Jennifer Tilly. Chucky says, "Do you have any idea how that can F with your mind?" And then repeats those last 4 words as he stabs him repeatedly before Santa gets pissed because Chucky is broken again. And we find out we're on a set of a movie called Chucky Goes Psycho. So yeah, this is a movie within a movie story now.
Yep, this is now a meta horror.
I mean, to be fair, they kind of started doing that.
Meta horror comedy.
They started doing that with Bride, but they definitely doubled, tripled, quadrupled down in this movie.
Yeah, they did quadruple down.
But yeah, which is based off of the urban legend. The movie is based off the urban legend of Chucky and Tiffany and their
knife murders.
Yeah. We find this out from a reporter on set who is played by Nicole Mycroft. Then we see Tony Gardner playing himself, checking on the puppets, and gets punched in the balls by the faulty Tiffany puppet. The assistant director of Chucky Goes Psycho goes to look for Jennifer Tilly, who's sneaking a candy bar. The AD is played by Daniel Gitzoff, and Jennifer Tilly is played by herself, Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jennifer Tilly discusses what's going on in the world with her assistant Joan, who is played by Hannah Spirit of the band S Club 7. I don't know who that is, but most of her acting roles were music videos for S Club 7 or TV shows based off of I think it's some sort of British band. British pop group.
Seems like it.
Yeah. When Tilly finds out that Julia Roberts has been cast in a movie, she accuses Roberts of stealing the role of Aaron Brockovich from her by playing harmonica with the director. Some big accusations, and Joan replies, that's not true. Which, fun fact, the producers or the executives at Universal or whatever, someone made them add that line in because they didn't want any trouble. That line of that's not true. Which, here's the thing, it's obviously, even without that line, it's pretty obvious that this is the character of Jennifer Tilly just making up accusations because she's mad that she didn't get a role. But they had to add that other line of her saying, that's not true, because, an executive told them they had to. Tilly asks why no one takes her seriously. And then the Chucky puppet compliments her breasts. She thanks him and says, "Look at me. I'm an Oscar nominee, for Christ's sake. Now I'm playing harmonica with a puppet." I really just praise Jennifer Tilly in this movie for just being willing to just make fun of herself nonstop. A lot of actresses would not be willing to do that. And from my understanding, it was not all her idea, but she definitely was completely on board and wanted to make fun of herself. Which, that's cool.
I would say that was the best part of the movie, was just the willingness Jennifer Tilly to just go in on herself.
It's fair.
Mad respect.
I liked
those were all the funniest jokes for me.
I liked a lot of the movie, and we'll get to the parts I like as they happen. Spoiler: I liked the movie. I know, crazy. I already kind of hinted at that last week. But yeah, I think she ends that after saying now I'm playing harmonica with the puppet. She says, and then she talks about how she has no fan mail, paparazzi, or stalkers. Tilly says there must be something I'm right for. So Joan tells her about now rapper turned director Redman, who is looking for the right actress for the lead of his Bible epic. But the role is Virgin Mary. Which Tilly doesn't see why that's funny and thinks it's the perfect role to reinvent herself, and tells Joan to get a meeting with Redman. We head back to Poopface in their cage in England, watching the reporter interview Chucky and Tiffany. When they see Chucky has the same made in Japan mark on his wrist.
That he's always had.
I will point out that I've heard people say that as a big flaw. And here's the thing. I don't remember them showing it in the last movie, which would be fair, but in the last movie, Chucky was remade by doll parts. It's very believable that his arm might have had it made in Japan. Because people are I saw people I was it's a big plot hole because we know Chucky was made in Chicago. But he was also rebuilt with doll parts, and like, I don't know, that might not even be a continuity error because that arm might be from a random doll Tiffany had that was from Japan.
But this is also a movie set doll that was just made.
But I think also
without reference.
I think people also think that it had to have been, because a lot of people speculate. Because I also assumed they were puppets for the movie, but people are really like hung up on the fact that they couldn't be put in puppets from the movie, and so people think that somehow the real dolls from the murders were somehow turned into the puppets for the movie to make this. I don't know. I don't know where they got that. I don't
know where they got that theory either.
But like multiple people,
Tiffany's doll was burned.
Yeah, okay. That's a very good point. I don't know. But maybe Chucky is actually from the. I don't know. I don't.
Also, Tiffany's puppet doesn't have the mole on her face, so it can't be the real Tiffany puppet.
You know what? Fine.
L.
Sure. So fine. It's a slight continuity error that they have a Made in Japan on them now. That's fine with me.
Yeah. I just thought it was a silly detail that they chose to keep focusing on and then proceed to make a whole series of jokes about.
Yeah, you understand. Sykes comes in and tells Poopface they need to be more scary, and tries to get them to kill a rat. But the rat first it cuddles up on Poopface before it bites Sykes, giving Poopface a chance to run away. Poopface ships themselves to America with the classic plane, and we see its travel line going to California.
Yep.
Very Indiana Jones.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah.
Did feel very out of place, but
I guess.
Also, who cares? I guess.
We head to Tilly, who is reading for the part of Mary with Redman, played by himself. Redman is a rapper who was signed to Def Jam Records and was therefore in the Def Jam video games, which are a fighting game series with rappers, which is weird but cool.
Yeah. It's a fun spin-on fighting game.
Yeah. Redman is checking out Tilly the whole time. He tells her he's going to go with his first choice, though, Julia Roberts. So Tilly asks Redman if they could discuss her ideas for the role in a more intimate setting. So Redman agrees to dinner at her place. We head back to set, where Poopface unpacks themselves in the special effects workshop. They find the Chucky and Tiffany puppets for the movie, and when they don't respond, they think it's because of how ugly they are. But then they read what's on the back of the necklace they left them, which is the Heart of Nabala, is the necklace they left him. And they read, Ade Due Dumbala Awake. And it brings Chucky and Tiffany back to life as all the lights explode with a surge of electricity. Woo! Woo!
Bring it on.
Yeah. Chucky screams at how ugly Poopface is and laughs at their name. Tiffany thinks that that's a terrible name and wonders where Poopface's parents are. Chucky thinks they must be hiding due to how ugly they must be with, how ugly Poopface is.
Come on, Chucky, you're calling the kettle black a little bit there.
Yeah, especially because at this point Poopface shows their Made in Japan marking, and Chucky looks at his and realizes that.
He's the father? Question mark?
I mean, he is.
Yeah, no, he is.
There's no question mark. He's definitely. You could question mark the Made in Japan markings. That's fair, but you cannot question that he is the kid. That is confirmed in the story. That is just a fact.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure is.
Chucky and Tiffany realize that Poopface is their kid. Poopface greets them in Japanese, which I once again thought was mildly amusing. I'm sure Chris did not, because Chris has no sense of humor. I'm just saying. What? And just moving on.
I haven't been laughing this whole podcast.
Well, that's because I'm hilarious, and you can't not laugh at what I say.
Oh, right. It's not just how silly this movie is.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is silly. It's
very silly.
I'm not going to at all.
Purposefully so.
Yeah, no, very much so. Tiffany calls Poopface Sweet Face, which is, call back to the last movie. And Chucky passes out. Tiffany wakes up Chucky when Poopface tells them they're in Hollywood. They hear someone coming, so they all play dead. Tony Gardner, comes in to work on the dolls. He picks up Tiffany and starts to unscrew her back to reveal organs. Like it feels like a heart beating, but it's definitely not where the heart would be. So it's just, it's meaty.
Just like her spine is like pulsating.
I mean, it looks cool. I don't know why it's there, but it looks cool.
Yeah.
And also, it's a doll, or we don't know how living dolls' organs would be, but that is how their back would look. Considering it's not real, we don't know the science behind living dolls.
Yeah. Gotta nail that science down.
That's true. Well, we did. This is confirmed what it is. So just deal with it.
Oh, that's a movie.
But it's a documentary.
Okay.
Before he can really freak out, Chucky uses a cable from the puppetry to decapitate Tony in, I think, a pretty cool kill. It's got a little bit of like CGI, but not enough that it like ruins it. Like it's just like kind of like help have like the shot of like his head as he first comes off. Like, but then like there's some cool practical effects with it as well, including like a really cool fake head that also like
Fertility plays with later.
Yeah, it's also just cool that like I'm sure for a special effects guy to get to make their own like death scene and head, I'm sure that's awesome. So. And considering this is really, you know, our special effects guy in this role as himself, I'm sure that's a really cool moment for him.
True.
Chucky and Tiffany kiss as they're sprayed with blood. Poopface looks on in disgust
and then pees himself.
Yeah, he pisses their pants. They're pissing his. You're pissing your pants. Yeah, it's they.
They are pissing their pants.
Yes. Tiffany says she had an accident, and Chucky corrects her. Says he had an accident. Chucky and Tiffany check and find out that Poopface has no genitals. Yeah. Chucky and Tiffany both still think, though, Poopface is the gender they want them to be. Chucky names them Glenn, while Tiffany wants to name them Glenda, which is a reference to the 1953 Ed Wood film Glenn or Glenda, which is it's a movie that's definitely like not perfect because it's from 1953 dealing with trans themes, but it is also still groundbreaking that they even did it at all in 1953, and it's somewhat based off of like, I'm blanking on her name and I'm very sorry, but one of like the first ever like trans activists from like 1952. This movie was kind of based off of their story slightly, and it still kind of fumbles through it because it's not, once again, it's from 1953. But yeah. But yeah, so that's why their name is Glenn/Glenda. And I will, for the rest of the notes, for the most part, be referring to them as Glenda together, because it's hard to know what scene is which, because as we find out through the character of Glenn/Glenda, I believe the closest term, I believe later they refer to them as non-binary, but I believe at this point it would be gender fluid would probably be more the way this character is presented, / just a not a good, honestly, this movie could also just argue it's the classic horror representation of like the weird like dissociative identity disorder / being trans that they like to do, like, you know, it's inspiration, Psycho, and all that kind of jazz.
Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, Sleepaway Camp. It's definitely, it doesn't do it perfectly, but it does do it probably better than all of those, because what a surprise, you know, maybe the creator of this cared a little more than those people did, because even though he is not a trans man, he is a openly gay man, so he does care about the community, and he does at least somewhat try to deal with it slightly more delicately, and does, spoiler, even make it even better much later on, after this movie. But yeah. It's a slight spoiler. I'm sorry, everyone. Some people who are only finding our podcast and for some reason don't want to watch any of this stuff but wants to not have the story spoiled. I'm sorry for those people. But yeah. So yeah. I will be referring to them as Glenn/Glenda and continuing to use they, them pronouns. Except for the very specific times where there's a couple times where it is very obviously that they are choosing to be one of the specific genders in that scene, which I'll explain when those scenes happen. But in general, I will be using they, them, and just saying Glenn/Glenda or Glenn, Glenda. I don't know exactly which way I'm going to say it as I go, but that's the idea.
There you go.
And I won't be calling them Poop Face anymore. No more Poop Face.
No more Poop Face.
But yeah, so back to the movie. Chucky and Tiffany, mostly Tiffany actually, has Glenda hide when Jennifer Tilly comes in to get a candy bar that she hid in Chucky's overalls. Tiffany is infatuated with Tilly. Tilly thinks Tony's head is just a prop, even kissing it, before realizing that it's actually a dead body's head.
Oops.
As she's leaving the building, she is swarmed by reporters, including Pete Peterson of Celebrities Revealed. Excuse me. Did I say Peterson? I'm sorry, just Pete Peters. I don't know why I said Peterson. Pete Peters is played by director John Waters of the infamously depraved Pink Flamingos, as well as Hairspray and Serial Mom, which starred Horror Bois alums Matthew Lillard and Justin Whalen of Child's Play 3. And Mancini actually knew that Waters was a fan of Chucky because of Whalen telling him that from when they worked on Serial Mom after they were in Child's Play 3. But yeah, John Waters is a very famous director for like niche genre films, things like, and also like he also pretty much, I think all three of those movies I mentioned he's also the writer and director of. But yeah, yeah, that's John Waters. And they also, John Waters always wanted to like be killed in a slasher movie, and spoiler, they got to be, because they're in the spot.
True.
As she questions, wait, what? As she's questioned, we see her driver, Stan, is practicing to confess his love to her. Stan is played by Steve West of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Specifically, Zack Snyder's Justice League. He is not in Justice League, so I guess either he was in the reshoots or he was in a scene that was completely cut from the, worst but watchable length of a movie.
Yeah. Well, his cut was real.
Yeah,
it was
it
was the original vision.
Sure, yeah. It was his original vision. That's why he had to go back and shoot scenes that were never in the original script.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
She sits up in the front of the limo, which gives Chucky, Tiffany, and Glenda a chance to sneak in the back. Tilly kisses Stan in the back. Glenda questions if Chucky and Tiffany are ninjas or Yakuza members. Chucky says they're from Jersey, not Japan. Tiffany is excited that Tilly is playing her in a movie. Chucky thinks Tilly's voice is annoying, which is really funny because it's Tiffany's voice.
Yeah.
And Tiffany thinks that she sounds like an angel. I really like the Jennifer Tilly part of this movie a lot. It's definitely my favorite part of this. I still like all of it, but not all of it, but I like most of it. But that is definitely the part I like the most, is the Jennifer Tilly. There's so much elements of the Jennifer Tilly being in a movie that also has her as a character. It's weird, and it shouldn't work, but it kind of does. Tiffany wants to transfer her soul into Tilly, and Chucky to transfer his soul into Redman, which he's down with. He's not saying questionable things like he did in Child's Play 3 though. So thank you, Chucky, for learning from your mistakes. Glenda asks about them, and Tiffany says they'll need a surrogate mother because she's not getting pregnant again. As her mom said, once is a blessing, twice is a curse.
Twice is a curse. Oh.
Which Chucky explains her sister. Lost my place. Twice is a curse. Stan is about to confess his love to Tilly when she calls Joan, who's currently faking fan mail for her because she is such a good person who doesn't really even get a chance to really even be in the movie. But her character is obviously so good. Like, she's trying to fake fan mail because she heard Jennifer sad that she didn't have any. It's such a small detail that could be easily missed, but I really like it that it's there. Tilly has Joan turn on the news, which has her find out about what happened, and then tells her to bring a bottle of champagne for her night with Redman.
Yeah.
Tiffany very humorously calls Tilly a loose-moraled woman, which is once again just hilarious because means Jennifer Tilly is calling Jennifer Tilly a word that means loose-moraled woman that I can't say thanks to the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah. Just know that it is the loose-moraled woman.
She's loose-moral woman shaming her. Later that night, in Tilly's attic, Glenn/Glenda is being tucked into bed with a bow in their hair. Glenda asks why Chucky and Tiffany kill people. Chucky says they do it as a hobby to relax. Glenda asks if they're going to be a killer. Chucky assures them, of course, it runs in the family for generations. Glenda says the TV says violence is bad. And Chucky replies that no, violins are bad. That, screeching music is going to ruin the country. Which, fair enough. I mean, who likes violin music?
A very large portion of people, I think.
I don't think that's true. I'm not saying there aren't people who like it, and people who because it's part of but I definitely think I've heard way more people in my life who think violins don't sound good than people who do.
I don't think anyone would be angry if you put on classical music.
That's fair. Tiffany says Glenda is right. They have an addiction to killing and gets Chucky to agree to quit killing for the sake of Glenda. But
cold turkey.
Chucky had his fingers crossed. That rascal.
Yeah. What a silly little guy.
Yeah, silly little guy. Downstairs, Joan tries to explain how evil it is that Tilly is prostituting herself to play the Virgin Mary. Which, true, but also adds to the whole humor of her idea and her plan. That she is trying to get the role of Virgin Mary by,
playing harmonica with the director.
Yeah. Joan tells Tilly she's going to hell. When Redman pulls up, Jennifer fires Joan for, saying she's so disgusting and telling her she's going to hell. Back upstairs, Tiffany gives Chucky a cup to produce a sample for the artificial insemination.
Yep.
Chucky asks for help, so Tiffany flashes him before leaving. So I guess this is the second time we see female nudity. This time it's just a doll. But still all only this movie. Chucky looks through some magazines before settling on the horror magazine Fangoria, which I thought was funny that he settled on Fangoria. I don't know. Once again, I'm not going to defend myself. I thought that was funny. I thought that it was funny that he liked Fangoria as an option. While Joan drives off, it gives Peter a chance to sneak into Tilly's yard. Tiffany tries to drug Tilly in Redman's champagne, but they don't drink it because they discuss how Redman liked Tilly in Bound. Told you in the last movie when we talked about Jennifer Tilly, Bound is important to the Chucky world. Tilly asks Redman what it's going to take for you to see me as a virgin. As they start to make out. Which, it's just, I'm sorry, I love that line. The irony is funny to me.
Fair.
Lost my place. Outside, Peters is taking pictures of them. Before taking pictures of Chucky, who he thinks is a little person, as he plays a harmonica solo. That was funny. I forgot what I wrote there. Get it? He plays a harmonica solo. That's a funny play on words for how we have to refer to, which you would think is something that wouldn't come up in a lot of movies, but this is at least the second time, maybe third time it's come up, which is more than I really am happy to admit.
Yeah.
He then sees Tiffany behind Tilly and Redman. Tilly gets cold feet, so Redman tells her God told him that she was right for the part, and then forces her head into his crotch. Thankfully, Tiffany is there to knock out Redman before he, Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with Tiffany's award, I believe it's an award for like most improved. Tiffany reprimands Tilly before asking for her autograph. She is a big fan. Tilly screams and runs to the door, but Chucky's there, so she runs to the kitchen and slips, and then gets back up, and Tiffany knocks her out. Chucky and Tiffany drag the bodies upstairs to Tilly's bedroom. Tiffany calls Tilly fat, and hey, she's not even pregnant yet. Yeah. Once again, I love it. She also I skipped over it, but when she before she knocks her out, she gives her the choice between the easy way or the hard way of knocking her out or giving her the champagne. And when she tries to run away again, she talks about how no wonder her career is in the place it is because she wasn't willing to take the easy. I love Jennifer Tilly making fun of Jennifer Tilly. It is a plus in my mind. So upstairs, Chucky sees Peters sneak away in the yard, and he leaves Tiffany to inseminate. Leaves Tiffany to inseminate Tilly. Chucky wakes up Glenn Glenda and removes their bow and takes them on a boys' night out.
Yeah, they're going hunting.
Yeah. Chucky drives Red Man's Hummer with the help of Glenn Glenda, which a lot of people point out technically ruins the whole last movie, but I don't care. There's literally a line from Chucky in the last movie of, what are we supposed to do? I drive while you work the pedals? And then they literally do it in the next movie. I don't care. I think it's fun. But hey, they see a Britney Spears, not actually Britney Spears. I did not write down the name of the impersonator they had play Britney Spears in this. I'm sorry. And they run her off. So Chucky runs her off the road, saying, "Oops, I did it again." Yep. Which is weird because I don't think he's ever killed Britney Spears before this moment. So I don't quite get that.
I don't think he ever did do it again.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just a line to him, killing somebody again.
Oh, yeah. Or just they wanted to make a reference to Britney Spears, which is fair.
Britney Spears, yeah.
Yeah. Because if you would have said "hit me, baby, one more time," just wouldn't have made sense in the context.
I know would have.
Would it, though? Because she didn't hit him at all.
No, you're right.
So I wouldn't. This one, if you wanted to make a reference to a Britney Spears song when killing Britney Spears in your movie because you wrote that in for some reason, this is the only way to do it.
They did decide to write that in.
Yeah. Well, I'm crapping on it for the sake of humor, but I actually don't have any problem at all with this. Britney Spears makes sense. She's in Hollywood.
Sure. Yeah.
Peters. We had Peters is whatever, I don't remember the name of the place he works. We're there, and he's developing photos in his dark room. Chucky alerts him to his presence with a laugh, but he looked. I think when I first wrote it down, but I think when I rewatched the scene, I think Peters kind of realized he looked familiar to the shape of the picture, so he then goes to look on his computer. And he zooms and it enhances, which you can do apparently with it. I don't care. It's not. It does. Yeah. He has the CSI computer. And if CSI, a very serious show that people really do respect, can do it, then this stupid comedy can also do it. Then Peters realizes that the photo he took earlier was Chucky. So he looks around, turns around, but Chucky's disappeared. Well, Chucky is on the ceiling, about to drop with a knife. But Glenn Glenda runs forward, yelling no to Peters, who causes Peters to walk backwards into a shelf that knocks sulfuric acid on his face in some okay CGI that turns into cool practical effects. The actual melting away is CGI, and it's 2004 CGI, so it's not perfect, but it's quick enough, and I think it doesn't fully take away from the cool gore you see after.
Yeah, I would agree. Could have been much worse.
Yeah. Chucky is proud and takes a picture of the body. In the morning, Redman and Tilly wake up next to each other, only remembering Tilly's screaming last night and assume that they played harmonica.
Yeah, because Redman has that effect on Leonese.
Yeah, apparently. That's what he says.
Yeah, that's what he says.
I can neither confirm nor deny that because I have never met Redman, and also have definitely never played harmonica with him. And I'm also not a lady. There's a lot of reasons why I cannot confirm nor deny that statement's truth.
Yeah.
Tilly does say she does remember one other thing from last night. She remembers dreaming her guardian angel visiting her, how she had this most beautiful voice, and, you know, also then wanted her autograph.
Yeah.
In the attic, Tiffany is reading a 12-step book, but after step 1, admitting you have an addiction, she skips to step 9, making amends. She doesn't care about the rest. Really, step 2, when it was, you know, admit there's a higher power, she's like, I'm not into that, so she skips to step 9.
Yeah.
And she calls one of the widow of one of her victims. Specifically, she calls Mrs. Bailey, which is the name, specifically also like his name, the name Robert Bailey was the name, is the name of the police officer she slit the throat of in the opening of the last movie. That it was like on the screen at one point during a news report in that movie, Robert Bailey. So that's who she's calling, is the widow of the first kill of the last movie. And yeah, she's telling him she's sorry. That's basically. I actually think this was a funny little scene of her. Like, it's all about her. She just like does not care at all actually about making like the other person feel like. She's like, after this, she leaves this woman so distraught because, you know, it's been 6 years. She's tried to move on from the death of her husband. She gets this call, someone saying they're a murderer, and then Tiffany's just like, "Oh, I do feel better already."
Yeah, I thought it was a comical scene.
Yeah.
It's like the woman's like crying and sobbing.
Yeah. Tilly's picked up
like,
in the morning.
okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were actually saying something good about the movie. I can't cut you off for that. It doesn't happen often. I need that.
No.
Oh no!
Carry on.
I missed it. No. Tilly is picked up by Stan, but before he can confess his love, she pukes in her bag. We cut to the evening, where at dinner, Tilly tells Redman she's pregnant, and that he's the father. He says he can't be, because he had a vasectomy when he moved to Los Angeles.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Redman tells Tilly he can't hire her now, though, because she's pregnant, which Jeff Tilly's like, but the character's pregnant. He's like, yeah, but I see this character as hot.
I got a vision for this Mary.
Yeah.
It's hot.
Yeah. Tiffany is overhearing this conversation upstairs and is about to grab a knife, but decides to call a recovery hotline instead. The person on the line encourages her to not beat herself up, and even like tells her about, in a, once again, comical way of like choice of wording. He's like, yeah, even I slipped up not that long ago, and, you know, man, it was such a hard mess to clean up. And she's like, oh yeah, because she's just calling hotline saying she's in recovery. She's not saying what it's for. It just, the wording choices were funny, where he's telling her exactly what she needs to hear, but doesn't realize that he's making it sound like he also is a murderer.
Yeah.
But he tells her, he ends it with, you know, hey, it's okay to, you know, slip up sometimes, because Rome wasn't built in a day. Downstairs, Tilly gets a call on the phone, leaving Redman at the dinner table, who gets, like, gutted from the crotch by Tiffany. Tilly has to leave because she's a suspect in Peter's killing. She leaves by telling Redman to drop dead, and right after she walks away, Redman falls over on the table, dropping dead.
Yep.
Glenda sees what Tiffany did, so she tells them it was just a little slip. And then Glenda's eye starts twitching. Which, hey, if we wanted a little quirk for this character, maybe we could have just done the eye twitching the whole time, but instead we also have to have the pissing your pants!
Yeah.
The next morning, Chucky and Tiffany watch the news of Martha Stewart leaving a courthouse, which is funny, call back to last movie where Martha Stewart was her idol, and now in those 6 years since, Martha Stewart, you know, has been, you know, arrested for, I think, tax evasion or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, something like that.
Yeah.
But then also, I don't know if it's just because it was in this world though. She might have done more because Tiffany says Tiffany just doesn't know what's going on. She says that she's going to like she got like the death sentence or something like that.
Death penalty.
Yeah. She got the death penalty today. So I don't know if in this world she did something worse, or if in this world Tiffany just doesn't know what's going on. But I like to believe that not that I dislike Martha Stewart, but I just like to believe in this world Martha Stewart's like also a murderer, and did get the death penalty.
Be funny.
Of course, I just got a word in my ear from the producers. Of course, that's a joke. We know she would never murder someone. Gotta cover our bases, like they did.
Right.
After they're watching the news, Chucky says he doesn't think he could take 9 months of this. And Tiffany says it's a voodoo pregnancy, so it's accelerated. We cut to a super pregnant Tilly waking up and noticing herself in the mirror. Tilly calls Joan and tells her she's fat and pregnant and how God is punishing her for her evil plan. Joan asks if it's Redman's. Tiffany, on the other line, responds, no, it's definitely not Redman, confusing Tilly, which in turn ends up confusing Joan, and this funny back and forth of them having the same voice and Joan not understanding, and then Tiffany specifically thinking that Joan is imitating her, and says she doesn't sound like that, to which Tiffany says, yes, you do. It's just... I love Tiffany.
This is a funny little scene.
Yeah. Chucky attacks Tilly, who starts screaming, which also makes Joan go what's going on here? Why are you? I'm hearing you scream right now. She says I heard you scream. Actually, I'm still hearing you scream. And Tiffany tries to cover it up by saying she's watching the harmonica scene in Bound. Once again, Bound. You gotta remember Bound, guys.
Bound.
Tiffany hangs up on Joan. Chucky ties up Tilly and is about to grope her or something when Tiffany comes in and tells him to shut up Tilly. So he takes a cloth out of his pocket to gag her, knocking the photo of him and Glenda with Peter's body to the floor. Tiffany is mad at Chucky for killing, and they argue over Glenda's gender again. Glenda comes in saying, "You're tearing me apart, Lisa." No, wait, sorry, that movie hadn't come out yet. Or just
Sadly
did,
not.
but they just say you're tearing me apart, and they said, "What about what I want?" Glenda says they want to be a boy. Chucky gloats. Glenda adds, "But being a girl would be nice too." Tiffany is happy. Chucky asks, "What is it?" Glenda says, sometimes I feel like a boy, sometimes I feel like a girl. Can't I be both? Tiffany starts to say, well, some people, but Chucky interrupts saying, no way. Chucky is not inclusive.
No. He is an irredeemable character.
Yeah, well, I'm just kidding, yes. Glenda says they know for sure they don't want to be a killer. Tiffany is supportive and talks about how they'll get help and get through this as a family. But Chucky wants no part of the 12-step program because he's not ashamed of being a killer. In fact, he's proud of it. This isn't some addiction. This is a choice he makes. He says, you shouldn't have to hide it in the closet, as he hits the closet in anger, spilling out Redman's body. Chucky gives her crap for being a hypocrite. Tiffany responds, it was just a slip, and Rome wasn't built in a day, besides, he had it coming. Glenda's eye twitches. Chucky asks about his body now. What is he going to do? So Tiffany calls Stan to come over, pretending to be Tilly. And once again, Tiffany does not lie to him because she tells him she needs his body, which he thinks he's about to get lucky with Jennifer Tilly. But in reality, she just needs his body.
Yeah.
Cut to later. Stan is tied up, gagged, and gagged before he can confess his love to Tilly. It's a running joke here that he can't confess his love to Tilly before something happens. Tiffany says they make a cute couple and is about to tell an anecdote from her mother, but Chucky cuts her off, saying, "I killed her 20 years ago," and she won't and she never shuts up. Joan shows up outside and lets herself in with the spare key. Chucky heads off with his knife to deal with her. Joan sets off the alarm when she comes in, though. It's like a silent alarm, though, but it does on the little computer screen say, that the police are coming. Joan heads upstairs and sees Jennifer and Stan tied up in Redman's corpse. Chucky is about to stab her from behind when in runs Tiffany with hairspray. With hairspray and a candle, lighting Joan on fire, sending her over the banister to her death. Chucky consoles a crying Tiffany, saying how, hey, everyone's got a few skeletons in their closet, and he shows that he has literally 3 off-screen kills in the closet.
Which is pretty funny.
Yeah. He asks her how long did it take to build Rome anyway, and turns her around, revealing it's Glenn Glenda in makeup and a wig. Chucky asks, Glenn? Glenda responds, guess again, Daddy. Chucky says Glenda, and Tiffany comes back in and asks what she missed. Glenda responds, nothing, I just fired Joan, and laughs. Chucky congratulates Tiffany on being right, because, Glenda has revealed themselves as a girl. Glenda responds, they're both right. And then Glenda repeats like mother and daughter in response to her dress until Tiffany slaps them out of it. And Glenda cries asking, what am I? Because this movie, that's this silly comedy, also still wants, for at least a second, to pull your heartstrings on this poor character who doesn't know what they're going through. Jeez.
Yeah.
We cut to later as Tilly gives birth to a baby boy. Chucky is happy, but Tilly's not done and gives birth to a girl, giving Glenda a choice. Chucky starts to do his Ade Due Dumbala incantation. Tiffany stops him because Glenda needs to make a choice. But then she realizes Glenda can be both because there's 2 babies. The cop shows up outside. Tilly starts yelling for help, and Tiffany yells out to him to do the chant. The babies are crying. Glenda's rambling about something. So Chucky yells for everybody to shut up.
Yeah.
He tells her he's had enough, and there's a limit to what he can take. And says if this is what it takes to be human, he'd rather take his chances as a supernaturally possessed doll. Tiffany says he can't be serious. He says he's as serious as a heart attack, and start talking about what's even great about being a human anyway. All you do is get sick and old, and he doesn't want to do that. Tiffany says, but I want to be Jennifer Tilly. I want to be a star. Chucky says, I don't want to be your chauffeur. As a doll, I'm infamous. I'm one of the most notorious slashers in history. I don't want to give that up. I'm Chucky, the killer doll. He says he has everything he wants. A beautiful wife and a multi-talented kid. Tiffany says it's not enough for her and tells him it's over. She's leaving him and taking the kid. Chucky says, nobody leaves me, and he throws his knife at Jennifer Tilly, but Stan, who just got free, jumps in front of her just in time to take the knife for her, and he dies as he's trying to, but never gets to, confess his love for her. Tiffany throws the knife at Chucky right before the cops come in. Excuse me. At the hospital, Tilly's lawyer explains how she can't see her kids because everyone thinks she's insane because, no one believes you. That's how this works if you've dealt with Chucky in this world. Because, why would they? Well, I guess at this point maybe they should start wondering.
Yeah, especially now if they're making a movie about the supposed folklore. Anyways.
Either way, at the same point, but also, logically, it still makes no sense, so I could see why people just think it's an urban legend, think people who think it are crazy. The lawyer is played by Nicholas Rowe. After he leaves, Tiffany drugs her IV, causing her to fall to the ground. She pulls out the heart of Nimbala when an axe starts to chop down the door. Chucky sticks his face in it in a very the shining way, but he says, I can't think of anything to say. You thought he was going to say, here's Chucky, but he didn't.
He diverted your expectations.
Yeah. Tiffany does the Ade Due Dumbledore chant as he continues to break down the door. With electricity surges, but right after she says it, she takes an axe to the face. Chucky reiterates that nobody leaves him and removes the axe. Tiffany falls down and tells Glenda to be a good girl or boy, whatever. Don't make the same mistakes your mom and dad made, especially your dad. Glenda says thank you, mother, in Japanese, before karate kicking Chucky and doing like a kung fu flip over him. Jennifer Tilly slides the axe to Glenda, who hits Chucky in the chest. Chucky says, Glenda? Glenn responds, no, Dad, it's me, your boy, your chip off the old block, and proceeds to cut off Chucky's limbs, asking if he's proud. Chucky says, attaboy, kid, attaboy, before Glenn chops off Chucky's head. Tilly comes over and consoles them. We cut to 5 years later, where Tilly's new assistant, maid, nanny, I don't know what she's supposed to be. But yeah, her name is, where is it? Volvia or something like that? I don't think that's right. I gotta pull it up. Sorry, guys. I don't want. Well, it doesn't matter. She's got a character name. I don't remember. Oh, it is Volvia. It's a choice for a name. Explains how she doesn't like Glenda and thinks she's evil, not like her angel Glenn. Fulvia is played by Rebecca Santos. Fulvia says she's scared of Glenda and tries to quit. Tilly kills her by smashing her in the head with the Tiffany doll, while Glenda watches on. Outside, we hear narration from Glenn about how they're a perfect family now, and Glenn gets a gift from an unknown sender, and it's Chucky's arm, causing Glenn to twitch their eye. That's it, right? No. They're pissing their pants! Yeah, and the movie ends with Chucky's arm grabbing Glenn's throat. I have 2 more little facts that I didn't know where else to put them, so I'm putting them here at the end. Just kind of about the movie. Probably should have put them at the beginning, but I didn't know where to put them there. But yeah, Mancini wrote this script in 1999, right after Bride of Chucky, but it was shelved due to this thing that happened in Colorado, a town called Columbine. Yeah, so, they couldn't make a movie about making a kid violent. So, yeah, it didn't come out then. It got shelved for a few years there. And then also, as you know, we kind of alluded to here, is Chris didn't like this, but I did. Mancini does like this, but admits that he thinks the sin of the movie was he made a comedy instead of a horror movie, which is why he thinks a lot of the Chucky fans didn't like it. It seems like Chris still wouldn't like it because he didn't like the humor specifically in it, but he thinks that is one of the big flaws, is that he really didn't even make a horror movie. He kind of made a comedy, which is fair. As an assessment of the movie, it is definitely more of a comedy than a horror, but, still has killer dolls and, a bunch of gore effects, so I consider it a horror, and I like it. I understand that's a divisive opinion. I understand it's divisive even on this podcast to say I enjoy this movie, but I do. I don't love this movie. I don't think it's a great movie. I think it's a good movie that I enjoy. I like the humor lands for the most part for me. There's certain jokes here and there. Piss in your pants. I don't care. But yeah. Overall, I like it. I think I really do respect Don Mancini for just going for something. It obviously didn't work because, spoiler, this is the only time he goes this far out of left field. He pivots back. He realizes that this was not what people wanted. But yeah, I respect it and enjoyed it. Yeah, I definitely don't think this is the worst movie in the franchise personally, but I can also see why people do. It is different in a lot of ways, and for some people I can see why that's not good.
Yeah, I think this, well, at least so far, is probably my least favorite movie in the franchise. I That's not to say it was like terrible. I didn't think it was a good movie, but that's not to say there's not like a lot of the humor I didn't enjoy. It just felt like so silly that yeah, it didn't feel as much like a Chucky movie. Um, as like any of the Child's Play. It really felt like they ramped up the meta humor of uh Bride of Chucky just to like infinity and beyond.
Fair.
And like I do love Tiffany and Jennifer Tilly getting to interact, and I thought that was a lot of fun. But it just didn't feel like a Child's Play movie. And I mean, it's not technically speaking. uh, but yeah, it was eh. And then aside from a lot of the humor that did hit, there was a lot of humor for me that did not hit. And so that was also unfortunate because when you're making a movie that is more comedy than it is anything else, you are throwing a lot of jokes out there, and unfortunately, comedy is one of those things that's pretty divisive. Whereas some people might enjoy some jokes, some people will not. And when there's that many jokes, especially for this, time period that the movie was made in, which I will say, it it doesn't for the time period it was made in, the jokes in it could have been a lot worse.
I would argue that
And that
there are no jokes that I feel like couldn't still be said today. Like sure, John Waters' character uses a derogatory term for little people, and that's about it. That I would like. You could argue maybe no one would choose to make like the Japanese music joke, but it didn't ever cross a line into truly like offensive. Like he doesn't like pull his eyes to try to be extra offensive while he does it or anything like a lot of comedies of this era probably would have done. So like I don't feel like there's really much in this that you couldn't get away with now.
fair. It's fair. Yeah, yeah. There's some questionable comedy.
It's fair. I'm not defending all the jokes. There are definitely jokes that don't work and don't age well, but I still feel like when it comes to a comedy from 2004, boy, does this hold up more than like a lot of comedies from 2004.
Yeah, no, that being said, there is also that large bias of just not liking a lot of comedies, period, from this era of filmmaking. uh, but as far as that is concerned, it does do a fairly decent job. But still not quite enough for me to like this movie anywhere as much as I've liked the other Chucky movies.
It's fair. Yeah, no. I mean, I hate you for your having a different opinion than me, but like, we'll make it work for the podcast.
Yeah,
like, we're no longer friends, but we can still be coworkers, Ooh. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, that's it. I'm not trying to think of anything I didn't. Just real quick before extra closing statements of mine, I want to just praise the special effects. I do think that they did. I really think Tony Gardner did a really good work on the special effects, as well as I want to just praise Don Mancini for even maybe not perfectly doing representation before representation was a thing people even worried about. It should have been something. And it's still not perfect. There is still an element where you could say that, well, this one, trans character is still evil. So, but you're in a movie where all the characters are evil, so. And they're the one who's at least conflicted about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that, and it speaks volumes to Don Mancini as a person that he wanted to, and we talked about it in the last movie, he was doing it in 98, and even in 2004 though, normally a trans character would literally only be there to be the butt of a joke, and I don't feel like I would describe Glenn Glenda as that. There are some slight jokes that you could say are maybe at them, but I don't think
also
that was
jokes are being made at everyone's expense in this movie.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that was like the point of the character, which is what I would say most of the time would be at this point. So huge credit to him. And when it comes to that element, he definitely even makes it better as he goes on. when it comes to representation. So,
yippee!
Yeah. But yeah, next week we're going to be talking about Cult. No, not that's the seventh one. We're going to be talking about Curse of Chucky. That's right. I'm sorry. But yeah, Curse of Chucky next week. It's definitely far more closer to the original trilogy than the last two movies for sure. So I think Chris will definitely enjoy this more than he enjoyed probably the last two movies. It's personally spoiler, my second or third favorite movie in the whole franchise. Yeah, I love this next movie called Curse of Chucky. The names are too similar. It's annoying. That's my one complaint about Curse of Chucky is it's too similar to the sequel, who has a different name that also.
C.
Yeah.
So there's another C word.
Yeah, and too many C's. But yeah, I'm not at that point yet. I was about to say I've been Austin, you've been Chris, but not yet. First, if you like this podcast, 5-star review on all those podcast apps. Leave a comment. Head on over to youtube.com/@horrorboys. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. I hate that crap, but hey, it apparently works if you actually did it. So hey, if you could, even if you listen to our audio podcast, go over to YouTube and just subscribe. Yeah, so it makes my day feel better. Even if you don't ever watch the video, I'll feel better. And don't you want me to feel better? No? Fair enough. Well, hurtful, but fair. Also, patreon.com/horrorboys if you want to support us directly. I've been Austin, joined by Chris. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.